Welcome, dear one. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Marit, and this space, Whispers from the Cottage, is my little corner of the world where I create soft, poetic stories to help women slow down, breathe, and remember their own gentleness again. I began making these sleep stories because I know how heavy the days can feel, how loud the mind can become, and how easily we lose ourselves in the expectations of others. For years, I longed for stories that didn't rush me, didn't demand anything of me, but simply held me until I could rest again. So I decided to create them myself, stories full of warmth, gentle rhythm, moonlight, and a quiet kind of truth that helps you soften back into your own heart. Tonight's story is a special one. It's called The Lie She Believed for 20 Years, and it follows a woman who has lived her entire life under the weight of one painful sentence, a sentence spoken to her long ago, one that shaped her, limited her, and convinced her that something inside her was fundamentally wrong, until one night when her body finally speaks and her future self appears with a truth that begins to unravel everything. It's a story about release, about understanding where our wounds come from, and about remembering that we were never broken in the first place. If you enjoy this kind of soft storytelling, you'll find many more journeys just like this one here on my channel. Stories about healing, self-love, boundaries, rest, and coming home to yourself. And if you'd like to support my work and help this little cottage grow, I would truly love it if you subscribed. It means more than you know, and it helps me continue creating these gentle night stories for you. So, settle in, find a comfortable place to lie down, let your shoulders drop, and allow your breath to soften. You are safe here, and you deserve this rest. Now, let's begin the story. The first time she heard it, she was too young to understand the full weight of the words, but not too young to feel them. They arrived on a late autumn evening when the air outside smelled of wet leaves and chimney smoke, and the house was a little too quiet around the edges. The kind of quiet that made sound carry further than it should. She was 8, old enough to read, old enough to notice when tension entered a room, old enough to feel that the grown-ups were careful in all the wrong places and careless in the ones that mattered. Her name was Lena then. It still was, of course, but back then it felt lighter in her mouth. She sat on the top step of the stairway, knees pulled to her chest, chin resting on the soft patch of skin between them. From where she was, she couldn't see the kitchen, but she could see the band of light under the door and the shadows moving across it when someone walked by. The house carried voices the way the lake carried moonlight, stretching them thin, making them gentle, but never quite hiding them. "I don't know what to do with her," her mother's voice said, low and tired. There was the clink of porcelain, mugs, the scrape of a chair. Lena's heart thudded once, sharply. She knew that her meant her. "She's so sensitive," her mother went on, as if the word were a kind of illness. "Always crying, always asking why. It's exhausting, honestly. another voice answered. A woman from next door. Or the aunt who came too often. Or maybe the teacher who had stopped by after school. The adult voices blurred together sometimes. They all had that same knowing tone, as if they understood her better than she ever could. "You worry too much," the other woman said. "Some kids are just like that." There was a pause. The kettle sighed on the stove. Then, "No," her mother insisted, in a whisper that carried anyway. "It's more than that. There's something wrong with her." The words slid under the door like smoke. Up the hallway, up the stairs, and straight into Lena's chest. "Something wrong with her." The sentence did not shout. It didn't need to. It arrived quietly, like frost, and stayed. Lena didn't move. Her body went very, very still, the way a small animal freezes when it hears a branch crack in the woods. Wrong with her? They didn't say what. They didn't say how. They didn't say whether it could be fixed, only that it was there, that it existed, that it lived in her like a stain only adults could see. She swallowed and felt her throat tighten, as if the words had lodged there. For a moment, she thought about standing up, marching down the stairs, pushing open the kitchen door with both hands and saying, "What do you mean? Tell me. What's wrong with me? I can change." But something heavy pinned her to the step. Shame, though she didn't have that word yet, just the sensation of wanting to hide her face in her knees and never be perceived again. Because if there was something wrong with her, then the worst thing she could do was be seen. She pressed herself closer to the banister, as if the wood could absorb her. The voices in the kitchen faded into the familiar rhythm of adult talk, half laughter, half sighs. But the important part had already landed. The part that mattered had already been spoken. Something wrong with her? She repeated it silently, testing the weight of it. Her heart hurt in a way that had nothing to do with running too fast or climbing too high. It was a deep ache, like someone had placed a cold stone behind her ribs. For years afterward, she would not remember the exact date, or what sweater she wore, or which adult sat at the table that night. But she remembered the feeling. The staircase, the thin line of light under the door, and that sentence, hovering in the air like a verdict. Things changed in small ways after that. Or maybe they had always been that way, and she only noticed now. When she laughed too loud, someone shushed her more quickly than before. When she cried, she heard, "There you go again," with a twist of irritation instead of concern. When she asked too many questions, there was tightness in the answers. "Don't be so dramatic. Other children manage just fine. Why can't you just be normal for once?" Normal, whatever that meant. She began to watch other children carefully. At school, she traced their movements with her eyes, how they laughed without checking the room first, how they raised their hands without rehearsing the answer in their minds 3 times, how they ran into games without wondering if they were wanted there. Their ease baffled her. Their lightness hurt to look at. She checked herself against them the way one might check their reflection in a series of mirrors, hoping one of them would be kinder. If they were normal, and she was not, then the equation was simple. Something was wrong with her. The sentence became a lens. Every reaction, every comment, every sigh from an adult became evidence. When a teacher said, "You're too quiet," she thought, "See? Wrong." When another said, "You're too intense," she thought, "See? Wrong again. Too much, too little, never just right." She tried to adjust, tried to become something more acceptable, more neutral, less noticeable. At 9, she practiced smiling in the mirror so it wouldn't look weird. At 10, she practiced saying "I'm fine" in different tones so adults would believe her. At 11, she stopped asking why out loud and stored all her questions in the secret corners of herself, where they grew like tangled roots. At night, when the house slept and the moon pressed a square of light onto her bedroom floor, she would lie awake and whisper into the dark, "What is it? What's wrong with me? Tell me so I can fix it." No one answered. Or if they did, it was in a language she couldn't yet hear. Time did what time always does. It moved. Childhood thinned into adolescence. Adolescence stretched into young adulthood. The world grew larger, new cities, new faces, new jobs, but the sentence traveled with her, packed invisibly in every suitcase. Something wrong with her. It colored kissing someone for the first time. If they knew the truth, they'd leave. It colored her first job interview. Don't let them see how broken you are. It colored even the small, quiet moments buying bread, choosing a seat on the bus, trying on a dress in a fitting room, and staring at her reflection under harsh lights, wondering if the wrongness was visible. By 28, she had become very good at functioning. She could hold a conversation at a party. She could remember birthdays. She could answer emails with speed and politeness. Her life, seen from the outside, looked almost tidy. She had a small apartment with a fern that only sometimes forgot to live, a job that paid enough to keep the lights on, and the cupboard stocked with tea and lentils and jars of honey. A handful of friends who liked her laugh and her way of remembering small details about their lives. But the sentence remained, curled at the center of her, like a coal that never quite cooled. Something wrong with her. It was quiet most days, like a radio left on in another room, always there, shaping the air. Even when she wasn't listening directly, she made choices carefully, not from desire, but from what seemed safest. She dated people who didn't ask too many questions, stayed in jobs where no one looked too closely, kept her feelings neatly folded like letters no one would ever read. Sometimes, when she caught herself in a moment of almost happiness, laughing with someone in a cafe, humming to herself while washing dishes, she felt a nervous flutter in her chest, as if the universe might notice and say, "No, not you. You don't get this. Not with what's wrong with you." So she would pull back, soften the laugh, quiet the humming. Better not to invite disappointment. There were moments, though, when something in her pushed against the old sentence. They came like small rebellions. A day when she stayed in bed longer than she allowed herself, just because the sheets were warm and the rain against the window sounded like a lullaby. An evening when she danced alone in her living room, barefoot, to a song she loved and felt for 3 whole minutes. Not wrong at all. A night when she cried into a pillow, not because someone had hurt her, but because she suddenly, painfully wished she knew how it felt to live without that sentence lodged in her ribs. She looked at women who moved differently through the world, women who said no without apologizing, women who laughed too loud, women who rested on purpose and felt something like longing rise in her throat. What would it be like, she wondered, to live inside a body that didn't feel defective? To wake up and not immediately begin negotiating with yourself? To look into a mirror and think, oh, there you are, instead of, what's wrong with you today? The questions frightened her. Hope was a dangerous thing for someone who believed they were built wrong. Hope meant imagining another way of being, and if that way turned out to be impossible, the fall would be hard. So she tucked the longing away, folded it gently, placed it beside the old questions in the secret corners of herself, and life went on. The night it began to crack, she did not expect anything unusual. She came home later than she meant to, shoulders stiff from a day of being affable and professional, words that always left a stale taste in her mouth. The air outside was sharp with winter. Her breath curled in tiny clouds as she climbed the steps to her building. Inside, her apartment greeted her with familiar smells, old wood, clean laundry, a faint trace of coffee from that morning. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and stood very still for a moment, letting the quiet wrap around her. It was the kind of silence that felt almost like a presence. She put the kettle on. The click, the hum, the low, growing rumble of water heating. Her small lamp painted a soft circle of light on the table, leaving the corners of the room in blue shadow. On the wall opposite the window hung a mirror. She had placed it there years ago without thinking much about it. Tonight, it caught the reflection of the streetlights outside, framing her face in a halo of tired gold. She looked at herself, really looked, not with the quick, critical checking she usually did, but with a long, hesitant gaze. Her eyes were softer than she felt. Her mouth held a hint of kindness even when it was resting. There were shadows under her eyes, yes, but they made her look more human, not less. She tilted her head slightly. "What is wrong with you?" the old question whispered, automatic as breathing. But another thought rose to meet it, quiet and unexpected. What if the answer is nothing? The kettle clicked off. The sound startled her. The fragile moment shattered. She turned away from the mirror too quickly, bumping her hip into the table. Pain bloomed, sharp and bright. "Ow!" she muttered, pressing her hand to the spot as if apologizing to her own body. She moved through the motions of making tea mug, bag, hot water, steam, but something inside her had shifted an inch to the left, just enough to feel slightly misaligned. The apartment felt thinner somehow, as if she were standing inside two versions of it at once. The one she'd always known, and another just slightly out of focus. She took her tea to bed. The clock on her bedside table glowed with pale numbers. Too late, and yet she wasn't really tired. Or perhaps she was tired past the point of sleep, that strange wired exhaustion that made her thoughts hum louder in the dark. She turned off the lamp. The room folded into shadows. The only light, the faint orange from the street and the soft, silvery wash of the nearly full moon streaming in through the gap in the curtains. She lay on her side, facing the window. The moon hung just above the building across the street, round and watchful. "You must get tired of looking at everyone," she whispered, not expecting an answer. The moon did not reply. Of course it didn't. She closed her eyes, opened them again. The sentence stirred, as it always did at night. Something wrong with her. She let it roll through her, familiar and unwelcome. Usually, she just endured it. Tonight, for reasons she couldn't name, it made her angry. Not a roaring anger, a quiet, hot ache. "Who decided that?" she mouthed into the darkness. "Who decided there was something wrong with me?" The house didn't answer. The moon didn't answer. Her own body did. Her chest tightened, her breath hitched, the ache behind her ribs, the one that had been there for 2 decades, seemed to swell a knot, pulling itself tighter and tighter, like a fist closing. She tried to breathe deeper. Her lungs disagreed. The room felt closer, the air thicker. No, not now, she thought, heart kicking against her ribs. Not this. I'm fine. She wasn't. Her limbs grew heavy and light at the same time. Her fingertips tingled. The old fear surfaced, not of dying, but of being seen falling apart. She pushed herself up, meaning to sit on the edge of the bed, to put her feet on the floor and steady herself. The room slid a little to the left. Her vision blurred at the edges, as if someone had drawn a curtain of static around her. Her body said, "No more." Her knees buckled. The mug slipped from her hand, landing on the rug with a muffled thud and a splash of tea that she barely registered. Her palms hit the floor next, cold wood against hot skin. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts that never seemed to fill her. "Something's wrong with you," the old sentence hissed, louder now, almost triumphant. Her heart hammered. Heat flashed up her neck, then dropped a wave, then a chill. She wanted to call someone. She wanted to reach for her phone. She wanted to apologize to the empty room for the inconvenience of falling apart. But she couldn't move. The moonlight had shifted, stretching across the floorboards in a pale band that ended just beside where she knelt. For a wild, disoriented second, she thought she saw something in it. Not a shape, exactly. A suggestion. The air thickened. Her vision blurred again, but this time the blur focused into something else, someone else. There, in the doorway of her bedroom, where the dark met the light, stood a figure, a woman. She should have been afraid. A stranger in her room, a presence where there should be none. But the fear did not come. The woman looked familiar. Not in the way of friends or neighbors or passing faces, familiar in the way of mirrors. She was older than Lena. Not much 10 years, perhaps. Enough to carry a different kind of grace in her posture, a softness that comes with having lived through some storms and realizing she survived. Her hair was the same color, just a little longer, threaded with 1 or 2 fine strands of silver that caught the moonlight. Her eyes were unmistakable, the same shape, the same shade, but steadier, less hunted. She wore a soft, pale dress that could have been anything: cotton, linen, memory. One hand rested over her heart, the other hung loose at her side. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Lena on the floor, breath stuttering, knees protesting, heart racing. The woman in the doorway, calm as a lake at dawn. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and warm and felt impossibly like home. "There is nothing wrong with you," she said. The words cut through the old sentence like a bell through fog. Not harsh, not loud, just true. Lena's breath caught. Her body shuddered once, a tremor that ran from her collarbones to her fingertips. "What?" she managed, the word scraping her throat. The woman stepped closer into the band of moonlight. Her features sharpened there. Yes, older, yes, fuller in some ways and softer in others, but undeniably hers. "I'm you," the woman said gently, 10 years from now, and I came to tell you that." She knelt so they were eye to eye, and in her gaze there was no pity, no irritation, no confusion, only recognition, only love. "There is nothing wrong with you," she repeated, each word landing like a small stone on the old lie, cracking it piece by piece. Lena stared at her, tears she hadn't felt, forming, spilling over, falling onto the floor between them. Her breath, for the first time in what felt like hours, reached all the way down. The knot behind her ribs loosened half a turn. Something in the dark corners of her mind whispered, "What if this is just a hallucination?" But something deeper, the part of her that had always known there was more to her than the lie, said, "What if it doesn't matter? What if the truth is still the truth, no matter how it arrives?" She closed her eyes, just for a second, letting the words sink in. "There is nothing wrong with you." When she opened them again, the woman was still there, and for the first time in 20 years, the old sentence trembled. The woman, her older self, didn't speak again at first. She simply stayed there with her, kneeling on the wooden floor as if there was nothing strange or frightening about appearing in another version of her own life. Her breath steadied slowly, like a trembling animal learning it was no longer in danger. Her palms were still pressed to the floor, skin hot against the cool boards, but her body was no longer buckling under panic. Something had shifted. A tide had turned. She lifted her eyes again. The older version of herself looked at her with a softness she had never seen, directed her way, not from a parent, not from a friend, not even from herself in a mirror. It was a softness without expectation, without judgment, without conditions. It was the softness of someone who already knew the ending of the story and knew it would be okay. "Why now?" Lena whispered, her voice thin and fragile. "Why tonight?" Her older self smiled a tiny, tired, aching smile that said, "Because you needed me. You've been carrying a sentence that isn't yours," the woman said. "And tonight, your body refused to hold it any longer." Lena swallowed. Her throat felt tight again, but in a different way now, not with fear, but with the strange pressure of being understood too quickly. "I didn't." She tried to catch a breath. "I didn't think it mattered anymore." Her older self tilted her head slightly. "Lies always matter, especially the ones we believe about ourselves." They stayed like that for a moment, two versions of the same heart, kneeling in the same beam of moonlight, breathing the same quiet breath. Heat gathered behind Lena's eyes, then slipped down her cheeks. The tears felt different than panic tears. They were heavier somehow, more honest. They slid down her face like warm rain. She wiped them away with the back of her hand, embarrassed by her own softness. Her older self reached out, fingertips brushing Lena's arm lightly. Not forceful, not urgent, just a reminder. You are not alone. The touch made something break open inside her, not painfully, but like a shell cracking to reveal something tender underneath. "It wasn't true," the woman said again. "There was never anything wrong with you." Lena's shoulders shook. She had imagined hearing those words 1,000 times, from strangers, from lovers, from friends, but never from herself. Never with this quiet conviction. "How can you know that?" she whispered. Her older self laughed, softly, not mocking, not dismissive, just knowing. "Because I lived after you," she said. "And I learned what your life looks like when that sentence stops controlling it." Lena blinked slowly, her breath catching. "What does it look like?" she asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. The older woman didn't answer directly. Instead, she shifted her weight and sat beside her, legs folded, hands resting on her knees. The moonlight painted a pale glow across her face, highlighting a hint of silver at her temples. "It looks like quiet mornings," she said, "and feeling safe in your own skin. It looks like choosing things because you want them, not because you're trying to prove something." Lena closed her eyes as the words brushed against her, like warm fingertips on sore skin. "It looks like breathing without apology, resting without guilt, loving without performing." Her voice softened further. "It looks like knowing you were never broken." A sob slipped out of Lena's throat, quiet but sharp. She covered her mouth. Her older self didn't flinch. She simply moved closer and placed a hand gently on Lena's back, grounding her. "Let it out," she whispered. "Your body has been waiting 20 years for this moment. 20 years. Lena felt those words ripple through her like a tremor. 2 decades of carrying something she didn't choose. 2 decades of shaping her life around a lie planted by someone who didn't understand her. A lie that had grown like a vine around her ribs, tightening every year. Her breath hitched again. She wasn't sure what hurt more, the weight she'd carried, or the realization that it was never hers to hold. Her body curled inward, not collapsing this time, but folding gently, a movement that felt almost like protection, like the instinct of a creature trying to make itself smaller because it had always been told it took up too much space. Her older self didn't try to straighten her, didn't tell her to sit tall, didn't tell her to calm down. She simply stayed silent, warm, present. Lena pressed a hand to her face. Her voice was muffled when she spoke. "I don't know how to live without that sentence." The older woman inhaled slowly. "Of course not," she said softly. "It became part of your identity. You grew around it. You survived because of it." Lena looked up, startled by the word. "Survived?" Her older self nodded. "Yes, children adapt to whatever they need to in order to feel safe, even if that adaptation hurts them later." Lena swallowed again, her chest tight. "But I was just too sensitive," she said, repeating the explanation she'd heard 100 times. "Too emotional. Too much." Her older self shook her head. "No? You were intuitive, perceptive, tender. You felt deeply. That was never a flaw." She paused. "The problem was not who you were. The problem was who they needed you to be." Lena's breath shivered. "And they called it wrong." Her older self nodded slowly, sadness flickering in her eyes. "Yes," she said, "and you believed them because you trusted them, because you were small, because you had no frame of reference for truth." The sentence hung between them like a small lantern in a dark room. Lena touched her chest lightly, fingertips brushing the spot where the panic had lived just minutes before. It felt tender, bruised, but freer. "What do I do with it now?" she asked. "The lie?" Her older self reached for her hand, the same hand, 10 years older, steadier, warmer. "You don't fight it," she said. "You don't shame yourself for believing it. You don't try to erase it." She squeezed gently. "You unravel it, thread by thread, with compassion, with honesty, with rest." Lena felt the truth land somewhere deep and trembling inside her. "But," her voice cracked, "how do I even start?" Her older self glanced toward the moonlight spilling across the floor. "You've already started," she said. "Your body collapsing tonight wasn't a failure. It was a refusal." Lena frowned, confused. A refusal? A refusal to carry the lie one more day. Your body decided the burden ended tonight. Lena pressed her lips together, overwhelmed. Her older self leaned in a little closer. "And I came," she whispered, "because when the lie cracked, your soul called for the version of you who knows the truth." A cold rush traveled down Lena's spine. "Is that really how this works?" she whispered. Her older self's eyes softened. "In the quiet hours of our lives, she said. We often meet the parts of ourselves we've needed all along. Silence fell warm, thick, almost holy. Lena felt her breath deepen, her shoulders lower by a fraction, her pulse slow just enough to feel human again. Her older self brushed a strand of hair away from her face. "You don't need to heal everything tonight," she whispered. "You only need to know that the healing has begun." A long, trembling exhale left Lena's chest. "Can you stay?" she asked, barely audible. Her older self smiled the kind of smile that held years inside it. "For a while," she said, "as long as you need." And so they sat together on the floor, one woman trembling, the other steady, both held in the soft silver wash of moonlight, as the lie that shaped her life continued to crack in the quiet. The room was quiet again. Not the heavy quiet from before, not the suffocating, breath-stealing kind, but a softer one, like a blanket settling around the two of them. Lena sat pressed against the side of her bed, legs folded awkwardly beneath her. Her palms had stopped sweating. Her breath no longer scraped against her ribs. The trembling in her hands had softened into something almost like warmth. Her older self sat beside her, knees drawn slightly toward her chest, the moon brushing her hair with silver. For a few long moments, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the slow, rhythmic ticking of the clock on the far wall and the quiet breathing of two women who were, impossibly, the same person. "Finally," Lena whispered. "I felt like I was dying." Her older self nodded gently. "I know. It was like something inside me snapped." "It did," the woman said softly, "but not in the way you fear." Lena swallowed hard. The memory of collapsing, of her lungs refusing, of the world tilting returned in a flash of heat behind her eyes. "I hate that feeling," she breathed. "I hate losing control." Her older self gave a small, knowing smile. "It wasn't loss of control," she said. "It was your body speaking the only language you still listen to." Lena glanced at her, confused. "My body speaking?" The older woman nodded. "You've ignored your fear. You've ignored your exhaustion. You've ignored your longing. You've ignored your anger." She placed a hand gently over Lena's chest. "But your body never lies." The touch was warm, startlingly warm, as if the woman carried heat from another world. "You collapsed tonight," she said, "because the lie became too heavy. Your body refused to carry it any further." Lena's throat tightened. A tear slid down her cheek, slow and quiet. "I didn't know," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to know," her older self said. "Not yet, but tonight the truth pushed through." The moonlight shifted slightly, spilling across the floor in a wider, softer shape, illuminating the outline of their bodies, one trembling, one steady. Lena's fingers fidgeted in her lap. "Why now?" she asked again, softer this time. "Why after 20 years? Her older self tilted her head. "Because you're old enough now to question the voice in your mind," she said, "and young enough to change the story Lena looked down at her hands, at the way her thumbs rubbed against each other, as if comforting themselves. "What if I can't?" she whispered. "What if the sentence stays? What if I'm just built wrong?" Her older self's expression softened grief and love and recognition, all blooming across her features at once. "You aren't built wrong," she said firmly. "You were taught wrong." The words hit Lena like a warm, steady pulse. You learned their fear. You absorbed their pain. You carried their misunderstanding of you as proof that you were flawed. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It slid into the room like truth has always meant to, quietly, without apology. Lena hugged her knees closer. "But if that's true," she whispered, "then what am I supposed to do with all the years I lost? All the choices I made because of that lie?" Her older self breathed in deeply. "You do what every woman who heals must do." Lena's eyes lifted. "You forgive the girl who believed it." The room felt suddenly brighter. Or perhaps Lena's eyes had shifted, adjusting to a truth she had never allowed herself to imagine. Her breath wavered. "How?" she whispered. Her older self leaned closer, so close that Lena could see the tiny lines around her eyes, the ones that looked like they were carved from laughter rather than pain. By remembering that she was never the problem, Lena felt another tear slide down her cheek. "But I feel like a problem," she murmured. Her older self's hand lifted again, touching Lena's jaw lightly, turning her face toward hers. "You feel that way," she said gently, "because you were raised on someone else's wounds." The words were sharp and soft at the same time, like a petal with a hidden thorn. Lena inhaled shakily. "My mother," she started, but the sentence broke as soon as it formed. Her older self shook her head slowly. "It doesn't matter who said it first," she murmured. "What matters is this," her voice lowered. "Your life has been shaped by a sentence that was never meant for you." Lena felt something inside her chest shift, a deep, almost subterranean movement, like a plate of earth sliding beneath another. The old ache pulsed, the old lie stirred, but this time something pushed back. A small, trembling voice inside her whispered, "But what if I'm not wrong? What if I never was?" Her breath hitched. Her older self saw the flicker in her eyes and smiled a slow, blooming smile that looked like the sun rising after 20 years of overcast skies. "There," she said softly. "Right there. That's the beginning." Lena pressed a hand to her chest again, feeling her heartbeat thudding beneath her palm. It felt different. Not calm, not yet, but stronger, more present. She lifted her head, her breath still shaky. "What happens now?" she asked. Her older self leaned back slightly, resting her hands in her lap. "Now," she said, "you see the lie for what it is." "And what is it?" Lena whispered. "A shadow," the woman replied. "Just a shadow that followed you for far too long. It cannot survive the light. The moonlight in the room brightened impossibly, beautifully casting a silver glow across her older self's face. Lena blinked. "What's happening?" she murmured. Her older self's expression softened further, almost sorrowful. "It's time," she said. "For what?" "For you to remember." The room shimmered. The moonlight thickened, as if becoming a substance, a veil, a doorway. And suddenly she wasn't in her bedroom anymore. Not fully, not physically, but something in her mind, her memory, her spirit shifted. Her older self reached for her hand. "Come," she whispered. "There's something you need to see." Lena reached out instinctively. Their fingers touched, and the world dissolved into light. The light did not blind her, it held her. Soft, pale, shimmering like the glow beneath the surface of water. For a moment, Lena couldn't tell if she was standing, floating, or simply existing. Everything felt suspended, untouched, safe. Her older self still held her hand, fingers warm, steady, certain. "Don't be afraid," the woman whispered. "I'm not," Lena realized aloud. And it was true. The light began to thin around them, parting the way mist parts when morning sun pushes through. Shapes appeared blurred at first, then sharper, as if someone were painting a memory back into existence. Lena felt her breath catch. She knew this place. The wallpaper faintly yellow, the wooden banister, the tall bookshelf with 3 missing slats, the narrow corridor that always smelled of old laundry and something sweet. "This is," she swallowed, "this is my childhood home." Her older self nodded. "Yes." Lena's chest tightened. A part of her wanted to pull away, run back into the softness of the moonlit room where this journey began. But her older self held her hand a little firmer. "We're not here to relive it," she said softly. "We're here to witness." The difference was subtle, but important. Lena felt the air shift around them, warmer at her side, colder further down the hall. A whisper of voices drifted up from below, the way they had 20 years ago. Her heart stumbled in her chest. "Is this?" She couldn't finish the sentence. Her older self looked toward the staircase. "Yes," she said. "It's that night. The night the sentence was spoken. The night the lie was born. The night her world tilted, quietly but permanently." Lena's breaths came quicker now, not from fear, but from the weight of memory stirring inside her. "I don't want to see them," she whispered. "I know," her older self said. "But you don't have to go near. Just watch. Just understand." Lena nodded, throat tight. Slowly, as if carried by a breeze too gentle to resist, her feet moved toward the top of the staircase to the very step where she had sat all those years ago. And there she was, a small girl with pale socks and a dress that didn't quite fit, knees pulled to her chest, eyes too wide, too alert, too old for her age. Lena's breath trembled. "That's me," she whispered. Her older self nodded. "You were so brave that night." Brave? It felt like the wrong word. She remembered feeling everything except brave. I look frightened, Lena said. You were, her older self murmured. And still you listened? Still you absorbed? Still you tried to understand the adult's world? Lena felt a swell of something thick and aching rise inside her. A tenderness she didn't expect. The child version of herself was so small, her back so tense, her shoulders hunched as if trying to disappear into the wood of the staircase. She hadn't realized, in all these years, how fragile she'd been, how lonely. Below them, the voices drifted up exactly the way she remembered. I don't know what to do with her, her mother murmured. So emotional, so reactive. It's exhausting. Her older self exhaled softly. She was speaking from fear, she said, from overwhelm, from exhaustion that had nothing to do with you. Lena felt her jaw tighten. That's not how it felt, I know. Her older self squeezed her hand. But stay with me. Don't go into the little girl's mind. Be here, now. Lena focused on breathing. In, out, slow and deliberate. The voices continued. She's too much, too sensitive, too everything. There's something wrong with her. The words slid up the stairs like the memory of smoke. They hit Lena's body with the same force they had 20 years ago, but this time, something was different. Her older self didn't wince, didn't stiffen. She simply looked toward the kitchen with a gaze both sad and understanding. Lena followed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, she saw her mother clearly. Not just the memory of her mother, not the towering adult figure from childhood, but the woman herself. She looked young, too young to be carrying the weight of raising a sensitive, intuitive child. Her hair was messy, her eyes rimmed red from exhaustion. She stood with her shoulders slumped, hands wrapped tightly around a chipped mug. Her face wasn't cruel. It was tired, terribly tired. And the woman beside her, the neighbor, the aunt, whoever it was, had her own weariness in her eyes. Neither of them looked like villains. They looked like women who had reached the limit of what they could hold. Lena blinked quickly, tears blurring the scene. I never saw that, she whispered. Her older self nodded. You couldn't. Children see intention as reality. They don't see exhaustion or trauma or limitations. They think every tone means something about their own worth. A small trembling noise escaped Lena's throat. Her older self stepped closer, letting their shoulders touch lightly. Your mother wasn't saying something about you, she whispered. She was revealing something about herself. Lena stared down at the little girl on the stairs, the small body trying to disappear. The silent tears she hadn't remembered shedding, the way her fingers dug into her dress as if bracing for impact. She felt a sob rise, thick and painful. I want to hold her, Lena whispered. Her older self's voice was so soft it felt like breath against her ear. You will. Soon, but not yet. First, you must see what she never saw. The women in the kitchen kept talking, But now Lena no longer heard them as voices aimed at her. She heard them for what they were. Two overwhelmed women speaking out of fear. Fear of failing. Fear of breaking. Fear of not being enough. Her mother's voice wavered at one point. A crack so subtle it was easy to miss. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I don't know how to handle her." Lena's breath caught. She had never noticed that line. Her whole life, she had replayed the sentence, "There's something wrong with her." But she had never heard the sentence that followed. Her mother had been afraid, not of her child, but of her own inability. Her older self leaned her head lightly against Lena's. "You see," she whispered, "the lie was never about you. It was about her fear, her limits, her exhaustion, her unhealed wounds." Lena's knees wobbled. Her hand flew to her mouth as tears streamed down her face. All these years, she had carried a sentence that wasn't meant for her. A sentence born from someone else's breaking point. A sentence spoken by a woman who was drowning. Not judging, Lena felt the truth settle inside her like a slow burning flame. Warm, steady, tender. "So it wasn't me," she whispered, voice trembling. "No," her older self said. "It was never you." The memory room began to soften again, its edges turning hazy. Lena's gaze drifted back to the little girl on the stairs. Her small shoulders, her loneliness, her trembling breath. Lena felt a pull, a deep instinctive urge. "I need to go to her," she whispered. Her older self nodded. "Then go." Lena took one step, then another. The staircase didn't creak under her this time. She knelt slowly beside the child she had once been. The little girl didn't react. Memories don't see you, they only play. But Lena saw her fully, completely. Then, without thinking, she reached out. Her older self watched in silence as Lena wrapped her arms around the girl she once was and should have never had to be alone. The light dimmed, the voices faded, the memory dissolved around them like morning frost. But the truth remained. There was never anything wrong with her. And now, finally, she knew why. The memory dissolved like morning mist sliding off the lake, soft at the edges, gentle in its leaving. And suddenly, Lena was back in her own bedroom, the room with the soft lamp and the fallen mug and the moonlight resting quietly on the floorboards. Her body felt heavier than before, but in the way a blanket feels heavy, grounding, protecting, holding. She exhaled slowly. Her older self stood beside her again, though the shimmering light around her had softened, as if the effort of traveling through memory had drained something even time could not fully explain. The woman smiled gently. "Welcome back." Lena didn't trust her voice yet, so she only nodded. Her limbs ached, not sharply, but deeply, the way muscles ache after holding tension for too long. Her older self sank down beside her, folding her legs with practiced care. "How do you feel?" she asked. Lena let the question settle. Her instinct was to answer automatically, "I'm fine," or "I don't know," or "It doesn't matter." But for once, she didn't. "I feel..." Her brow knit, the words slow to form, empty and full at the same time. Her older self nodded, as if this made perfect sense. "That's what happens when a lie dissolves," she said softly. "It leaves a space behind, a space you've never had before." Lena swallowed. The hollow ache in her chest pulsed again, not painful now, just new. "What do I do with it?" she whispered. "You breathe into it," her older self said. "You let it widen. You let it soften. You let it teach you." Lena stared at the place on the floor where she had collapsed earlier, where her body had refused to take one more step under the weight of a belief she had never chosen. "I don't think I realized how heavy it was," she said quietly. "No one ever does," her older self murmured. "Lies settle into us slowly. They become the air we breathe, the water we swim in, the reason behind the reasons." Lena leaned her head back against the edge of the bed. Her eyes drifted toward the window, where the moon still hung a little lower now, as if watching them from a quieter angle. "I saw her," Lena whispered. "My mother." I saw her face. I never noticed how tired she looked. "That's the heartbreak of growing up," her older self said. "We learn that our parents were just people. People with their own wounds, people who said things that belonged to their pain, not to our truth." A warm sadness bloomed inside Lena. Not anger, not bitterness, just a soft ache of understanding. "She didn't mean to hurt me," Lena murmured. "No," her older self said. "But intention doesn't erase impact. And you lived inside the impact for 20 years. Lena pressed a hand to her chest again. The place that had clenched so tightly for so long. "It feels like something's missing," she whispered. Her older self looked at her carefully. "What do you think is missing?" Lena frowned, closing her eyes for a moment, trying to listen to that quiet place inside her, the place she had ignored for too many years. Finally, the answer rose. "Permission," she said softly. "I think I spent 20 years waiting for someone to tell me I'm allowed to be me." Her older self's gaze warmed, glowing with recognition. "And what if you don't need permission from anyone else?" she asked. "What if the only permission you ever needed was your own?" Lena's breath stuttered. "Oh," she whispered. The word was small, but it was real. Her older self scooted closer, her shoulder brushing gently against Lena's. "You've been living according to an old map," she said. "A map drawn by someone who didn't understand you. Someone who didn't know your softness was strength. Someone who spoke from fear, not truth." Lena felt her throat tighten again. Her older self reached out, lifting Lena's chin lightly so their eyes met. "But now," she whispered, "you finally get to draw your own map." A trembling inhale passed through Lena's lungs. "And that starts tonight." The room felt warmer suddenly, as if something unseen had settled into it, easing the chill from the corners. Lena's eyes drifted down to where their hands rested on the floor, a few inches apart. "Do you ever wish you could go back?" she asked quietly. "To that little girl? To change things for her?" Her older self shook her head gently. "We can't change her past," she said, "but but we can change the story she believes about it. She took Lena's hand. And we can give her a future where she is no longer the girl who was told she is wrong. Lena closed her eyes, a tear sliding past her temple. That sounds impossible, she whispered. Her older self smiled softly. It's not impossible, she said. It's just unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things often feel impossible at first. The clock ticked quietly in the corner. The moon dipped another fraction lower. The whole room seemed to breathe with them. What happens now? Lena asked. Her older self squeezed her hand. Now, she said, we begin the unlearning. Lena opened her eyes, her gaze fragile but steady. How? She whispered. Her older self shifted, turning to face her more fully. With truth, she said. With gentleness, with choosing yourself. Little by little, she brushed a thumb across the back of Lena's hand. And with sleep, she added softly. Real, deep sleep, the kind that rebuilds, the kind that resets the mind and clears the shadows. Lena let out a shaky breath. She suddenly felt tired, but not the tiredness that destroys, the tiredness that heals. I don't know if I can sleep, she murmured. You can, her older self said. And you will, but not alone. Lena blinked. What do you mean? Her older self's smile softened into something luminous, something almost divine. I will stay with you, she whispered, through the whole night, until the lie loses the last of its power. Something in Lena loosened a knot that had taken decades to form. She lowered her forehead to her knees, overwhelmed by relief she didn't know how to hold. Her older self placed a calm, steady hand on her back. Rest, she murmured. You're safe now, and tomorrow you will wake as someone who finally knows the truth. Lena lifted her head slowly. The room glowed with soft shadows and moonlight. Will it hurt? She asked. Her older self considered the question carefully. It will feel strange, she said, and it will feel tender. And sometimes it will feel like grieving a version of yourself that never should have existed. Lena swallowed. But it will not break you, her older self whispered. It will build you. A long silence passed. Then Lena nodded, small but real. Okay, she breathed. Her older self smiled. Then lie down, she said gently. I'll guide you the rest of the way. Lena shifted slowly onto the bed, her limbs heavy but willing, her breath deepening as she settled into the softness beneath her. Her older self stood beside her, a quiet guardian in moonlight. The night held its breath. The lie, weakened, flickered like a candle near the end of its wick. And Lena closed her eyes for the first time as someone who knew that everything wrong in her story had never been her. She slept. Not the light, restless sleep that had followed her for years, the kind that circled the edges of consciousness without ever sinking in. No. This time her sleep was heavy, whole, deep. It wrapped itself around her like a warm tide pulling her gently beneath the surface, far from the noise of thought, far from the old sentence that had ruled her life. Her body gave in completely. Her breath lengthened. Her shoulders softened. Her jaw unclenched. Her heart quieted. And somewhere, just beyond the threshold of dreaming, her older self stood watch a calm silhouette of moonlight and tenderness. Not touching, not interfering, just keeping the night safe, just keeping her safe, just staying until the lie had no place left to live. The hours drifted by with a softness she had forgotten was possible. Dreams came and went like gentle tides, images of water, forests, tiny lights in the dark, the echoes of a girl she used to be playing at the edge of memory. No fear, no heaviness, just release. When dawn finally approached, the moon lingering like a pale sign of loyalty in the early sky, her older self sat quietly beside her bed, watching the first threads of sunlight stretch across the floor. And then, as the room brightened, as morning voices stirred in the world outside her window, something in the woman of the future shifted. She stood, slowly, gracefully, the shimmer around her faint silver dust woven through her shape brightened for a moment, as if catching its breath. "It's time," she whispered. Her voice was soft enough that it didn't wake Lena, soft enough that it felt like a blessing spoken into the air. She leaned over the younger version of herself, still sleeping in the gentle cradle of first peace. "You will be all right," she murmured. "You will learn to trust yourself. You will learn to rest without guilt. You will learn to love the parts you once feared." Her smile trembled tender, proud, almost tearful. "And you will never again believe that something is wrong with you." She reached out and let her fingertips hover over Lena's forehead, not touching, not needing to. "You deserve the life you're about to build." A soft glow expanded around her, the shimmer brightening into threads of quiet light. Then the woman, older, wiser, softer, took one slow breath and stepped backward into the fading moonlight, until there was only the room, the soft morning air, and the woman asleep in her own bed. Lena woke at the sound of birds. Light filtered through her curtains, warm, golden, honest. She blinked up at the ceiling, confused by the stillness in her chest. No pounding heartbeat, no nausea, no cold rush of dread waiting for her at the edge of consciousness. Just quiet. She shifted onto her side. Her body felt different, not weightless, not perfect, not fixed, but hers. Her breath came easily. Her limbs were coated in a warm heaviness, the kind that comes only after moments of deep release. For a moment she simply lay there, watching how the sunlight painted soft shapes on the wall. She listened to the small noises of morning pipes humming, leaves brushing against the window, footsteps somewhere upstairs. Everything felt real and merciful. She slowly sat up, expecting the familiar tightening in her chest, the quick suspicion that something was already wrong. It didn't come. Her throat didn't constrict, her belly didn't drop, her breath didn't catch. Instead, a thought rose timid, new, unfamiliar, I'm okay. She blinked. The words surprised her. I'm okay. She said them again in her mind. They didn't dissolve. They didn't lie. She reached up and touched her own cheek as if confirming she was still real, still solid, still here. Images drifted through her memory moonlight. Her older self's voice, the hallway of her childhood home, the trembling little girl on the stairs. For the first time in her life, she didn't want to turn away from that memory. She wanted to hold it gently, like something precious. Lena breathed in deeply, felt the air expand her chest without resistance. The space inside her, the one her older self had spoken of, felt larger now. A hollow that wasn't painful anymore. A hollow that felt like possibility. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her feet met the floor with a grounded warmth. And then, without thinking, without rehearsing, without guilt, she placed a hand over her heart. It beat calmly under her palm, strong, steady, alive. I'm not wrong, she whispered. A single tear slipped down her cheek, not of sorrow, not of fear, but of recognition, because she finally felt it in her bones. She was not broken. She had never been broken. She had simply believed a story that was never hers to begin with. She looked toward the window. The last sliver of the moon hung faintly above the rooftops, as if waiting for her to notice, before disappearing into the daylight. Thank you, she whispered into the brightening air. The moon didn't answer. It didn't need to. Something in her chest had already changed shape, like a lock turning quietly, like a door opening inward. She took her first step into the morning as a woman who finally understood that the truth she longed for had lived inside her all along. And the lie, that small, heavy sentence that had shaped her life, was now nothing more than a shadow slowly fading in the light.